Hello, my name is Jimmy Henderson, and I'm a graphic designer from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The past century, particularly the past 20 years, have seen unprecedented growth, change, and development in our society, which has led to polarization, division, and uncertainty. Communication designers have sought to make sense of the world and clarify this uncertainty, particularly through the use of a variety of narrative methods to illuminate issues, encourage dialogue, and inspire change. The Children of Loki is a body of design work presented as large-scale prints, hand-constructed plaster beer cans, and digital collages that uses the framework of historical Norse mythology to create a provocative visual tale that presents information on current political and societal events. I use the Norse creation myth of Ymir to represent society during World War II and post-World War II. The Norse gods, specifically Odin, Thor, and Loki, represent the generation of post-World War II baby boomers, specifically focusing on their rise in political power and major policy decisions made at the height of their voting power. The children of Loki represent millennials and the growing younger voter base, their current growth in voting power and the unavoidable conflict happening as this shift in voting power and desire for societal change occurs. With that in mind, let's begin our journey. I want to tell you a story. In the beginning, there was nothing, except for Niflheim to the north, a world of darkness and mist, and Muspel to the south, a world of fire and flame. In Muspel, where the mist meets the flame, stands Surtur, flaming sword in hand. He predates the gods and waits for Ragnarok. It is during Ragnarok that he will burn the world. Remember him. Ymir, the first giant, emerges where the warmth meets the cold, a foundation for the world to come and the father of life and the gods. It's where our story begins and the gods rise to power. I used collage banners as a way to visually explore the connections between old and new, Norse myths and modern politics. Semiotics helped inform the collages to create a visual timeline using Norse mythology, from creation to the apocalypse, as a metaphorical framework for certain political and societal issues we face today. These issues include wealth disparity and income inequality, the rising cost of education, crippling student debt, a disenfranchised millennial generation, a noticeable political divide between millennials and boomers, a shift in voting power between millennials and boomers, and the looming effects of climate change. I want to tell you a story. The gods, led by Odin, slew Ymir, father of giants, and used his body to create the world. Everything he was they took and used for their own ends. His brains became the clouds, his skull the sky. His bones became the earth and rocks. His blood the waters of the world. What Ymir was, the gods claimed and took as their own. They seized that foundation, bent it to their will, and grew powerful, wealthy, and wise. They controlled the 9 realms, slew their enemies, and walked among humanity as divine beings, radiant and demanding respect. The riches of the world were theirs to control, and the gods guarded those resources jealously. I want to tell you a story. The gods lived in great halls and had great treasures. They used deception, trickery, and murder to add to their wealth. They amassed great fortunes of gold and weapons and magical trinkets. They hoarded the golden apples of Odin that granted them immortality and prodigious health and strength. They demanded treasures from the race of dwarves. These were not shared freely with the world, but were kept for their own enjoyment and pleasures while humans toiled endlessly in the cold and mud. I want to tell you a story. Odin, the Allfather, had sipped from the well of Mimir, received counsel from the Norns, and can see all that happens in the 9 realms. He has mastered runes and, above all else, values the power of knowledge. This is what led him to steal the mead of poets from a giant through trickery and magic. The mead allows anyone who drinks it to create poetry and gain knowledge. The gods now control the mead and access to that knowledge, and the price to sip the mead is higher than it has ever been. I want to tell you a story. The gods went to Jotunheim, the land of the giants, and found the children of Loki and took them. The first, a daughter named Hel, half beauty and half living corpse, they sent to the underworld to watch over the unworthy dead. The second, Jormungandr, the great serpent, they threw into the ocean. He would grow large enough to encircle the world. The third, Fenrir, the great wolf, they tricked and bound beneath the earth, his bonds unbreakable. Children, all of them, taken from their mother, banished, cast aside, and imprisoned. The odds were against them, and the rules created to disadvantage them. But prophecy warned that the children would be the downfall of the gods, so the children grew and they waited. I want to tell you about the present. It begins with a winter, a time before Ragnarok and the end of the world, a brutal, never-ending winter that brings famine and cold. Mankind will starve and fight wars. It is a time of disease and want. Cities will fall in ash, and the twilight will set on the world as the sun and moon vanish. Darkness will enshroud the earth, and snow will drive from all directions. The earth will heave and shake. All bonds will break, even the unbreakable ones. I want to tell you about the future. Ragnarok, the children of Loki seek retribution. The army of Hel's unworthy dead gather alongside the frost giants and the sons of Muspel. Fenrir leaves fire in his wake, and Jormungandr floods the earth as he heaves himself onto land. The children of Loki will die, overthrowing the gods, and the gods will die at the hands of the children of Loki. Everything will end, systems will crumble, and pantheons overthrown. The era of the gods will come to a close. During this battle, events started by the gods will begin to change the landscape and battlefield. Ignored until it is too late, it will usher in the end of Asgard and the world. It starts with heat. The sons of Muspel advance on Asgard, crossing the Bifrost Bridge and burning everything in their wake. Waiting patiently, eagerly, Surtur, the giant who has been since before the beginning, will raise his sword and set the world on fire. The air will burn, the earth will be cremated, and the oceans will boil. Soon after, the oceans will swallow the earth under a sunless sky, and everything will end in ash, flood, darkness, and ice. I want to tell you about the future. The earth will rise back out of the sea, green and vibrant. Humanity, sheltered within the world tree, emerges. The next generation stands at a crossroads. It is a time of renewal and change, and choices have to be made. They represent a new beginning, a symbol of hope and rebirth. They represent untapped potential and a limitless future, brought about by revolution and an overthrow of the gods. The children of Loki tore down everything so the next generation could have a chance, an opportunity to decide and a chance to build a new world. I want to impart knowledge. The mini-meads are singular representations of the mead of poets, and also act as contemporary runestones. Each can was hand-cast in plaster and wrapped in a designed label using collaged imagery, and is meant to present information as a record. It is meant to educate, foster discussion, and allow interactions with the work. The information focuses mainly on the drastic economic differences faced by older and younger generations, and attempts to show the way consolidated political power has been used to systematically enrich a generation at the expense of future generations. The design is meant to invoke thoughts of money, vintage imagery, uncomfortable iconography, conflict, emotional angst, anger, and a shifting economic landscape. Here are a few of the labels. Millennials have 300% more student debt than their parents. 1 out of 5 millennials is living in poverty. 25% of net income is spent on housing as opposed to 8% in the 1960s. CEOs make $347 for every $1 their workers make on average. Boomers could work 306 hours of minimum wage to pay for 4 years of college. Millennials would have to work 4,459 to do the same. Wages have been stagnant since 1970. To conclude, in an age of information overload, it is easy for people to disassociate. As designers, we have an opportunity to use narrative and visuals symbiotically to draw our audience into our story and present information in a way that allows them to dialogue and explore. As designers, if we don't pursue more interesting methods of creating and presenting design, we miss out on an opportunity to educate, pass on knowledge, and create change. Thank you.